Hello everybody, hello, welcome to Guild Wars 1, Reforged I suppose, soon enough, and to this small series of videos about game mechanics and game controls and things that are probably not super explained or not super obvious sometimes and could help you have a better experience in the game when you're just starting and when you're returning to it. This is my third attempt recording this because I fucked up the first two, but let's, in this video, I will talk about mainly controls and some UI elements, targeting, AoE, and a bunch of those like fundamental elements of the game. If you know certain things, you could pay attention to the timeline. On the timeline, I should be able to put timestamps, and you should be able to skip to the segments that you really like, or you skip segments that you don't want to watch, you know already. But with that said, let's get started. And let's start with just movement first. You can obviously, as in any game, move using WASD. By default, your AD are your rotation buttons, but I unbound them, so I cannot really do that anymore. And Q and E should be your strafing buttons. You can also move with your left mouse clicks, if you really want to. You can also hold left mouse to keep your character moving towards it, chasing it. You can also hold left and right buttons together to keep moving, sort of like from the third person point of view, and just keep moving forward. And you also have an option to auto run. In my case, it's Q. In the default setup, I think it's R on the keyboard. So yeah, just hold that, hands off the keyboard, it keeps running. I can rotate the camera and it'll keep running still. Very nice. One important thing about the movement using the mouse, clicking, is that sometimes you can click somewhere where the character struggles to find a path to. Usually, pathfinding is pretty decent, right? You can run around objects, obstacles, and stuff like that. Your character, please note, will not run around enemies. So if you click something and there's like an enemy standing over here, it will not find a path around them, or at least it will struggle to. And another thing that can happen is if you click either too far away or you click somewhere further down in some complicated scenery, your character could struggle to find a path as well. For example, in this case, there's like a little broken spot over here in the corner. And if I click there, this is silly, right? It tries going there directly because it cannot find a path. The way to solve it is usually by clicking somewhere closer to let the character find the path, and then, clicking further wherever you wanted to go in the first place. So that's done. Now, when it comes to your mouse is the primary way to select allies or enemies. In the case of allies, your character will automatically start running to start talking to them. In the case of enemies, your character will automatically start running to attack them, right? And if they're in range, if by accident, you're standing in range and you click it, it will immediately start doing so. The way to cancel it is by tapping movement, if you want. For example, this suit of armor, I just tap back, and then boom, I'm standing still, right? That is convenient. Also, if you already have something selected, you should see the health bar at the top. You should also see them casting spells. For example, this monk, I think, was casting Mending on me, or Remove Hex, you see. That is convenient because sometimes, if you're playing a Mesmer, for example, you can interrupt that, and if you see a skill bar filling up, that's your prime spot to interrupt. Also, if you have something selected, you can press spacebar, and that will do the same thing as if you clicked on that target, right? So for the allies, it will move towards them if I press spacebar. For enemies, it will... the character, that's a silly way of saying it, but the character will move to attack. Next, you can hold Control to highlight every enemy. Even through walls. Look at this. There's the sun spear. If you look at the top of the screen on the minimap, on the radar, there's this enemy over here. By the way, you can click, left click to ping, and hold left click to draw on the minimap. But yeah, there's this volunteer. You can see them through walls. It helps you because sometimes, when you see enemies around the corner and you want to see what kind of enemies they are, you can preview them and select the target that you want to select. It is important to note that you can click not only on bodies of enemies or allies, but also on the nameplates. And that's convenient, right? For that exact reason, that you can do that through walls and, pre-target things. You can also target yourself by pressing F. This selects yourself. It will help you in a couple scenarios. I'll talk about them later. And you can hold Alt to highlight all allies. And the green, like the sort of paler green or brighter green will be allies that are NPCs. They also include, by the way, priests at shrines that give you rewards in the explorable areas, and they include, you know, merchants, stuff like that, and towns, right? And the darker green, like over here, you can see, those are your actual party members. In towns, those will be henchmen, right? So that's convenient. Control, by the way, in the city will also highlight every single player nameplate. So that could be a bit overwhelming, be wary. Next, we have some other convenience buttons like Tab. By default, if I'm not mistaken, Tab will select the nearest target to you. In my case, I bound Tab to select the next target, and it doesn't mean nearest. Like if I scroll through these three, Tab, if there's some enemy like far away that is still in range, Tab will select that, right? So it can be a, you know, double-edged sword, but for me, I kind of got used to it. So you can assign that in the settings to change the functionality, but for me, Tab selects the next enemy, and Shift Tab selects the previous enemy. So I can cycle between enemies pretty quickly, right? And as you can see on the radar, it highlights in green the target that you are selecting currently. So if somehow, you know, you do the same thing as me and you like click Tab again, and then boom, it selects something far, far away, you can see on the minimap that it doesn't select anything in front of you, right? Anyway, that's a convenient button. I do recommend that you turn it on. Another convenient button that exists that I don't know if it's turned on by default, but if you press U, you can open a mission map. What is the difference between the mission map and the radar? The radar, the top one, right? It rotates with you, it shows you enemies and shows you allies on the map, and it shows you this circle, which is one of the most important distances. It's your aggro range, and it's also like the casting range, right? I'll talk about distances in a different video when we talk about skills. But for now, what you need to know is that radar shows you enemies and sort of battle info, and the mission map shows you your quest info, your path that you've taken during this exploration. It shows you sometimes, like in this case, in the newbie zone, it shows you like important vistas and stuff like that, right? It does help you find things. And if you select a quest that is on the same continent as you are, like in my case, Corner, for example, is on the same continent, then, you know, there's an arrow on the radar, but also on the minimap, I could see where I need to go to do that quest. That is convenient, especially if you are in the exact location where your quest is. It will show you where to go, right? That is fantastic. Next, we are moving on to your heroes and henchmen. There is your group. You are almost never going to be traveling alone, right? And that's cool. But there are two types of followers that you can have besides real people, right? You can have henchmen, like this Sologun guy, motivation henchman, and you can have heroes. Heroes are your followers that you know, always can have with you if you want to, and you can actually set up their entire builds and their skills and gear and everything, right? They're like your full party members. There are certain differences between them, but first, in general, you can control your party, your NPC party, by using this flag. If you click on it and then click somewhere, your entire group will move to that point. It is convenient because you can, first of all, disengage, right? You order people to disengage, you can run away, and that's cool. You can also set up, let's say, a choke point, right? You can set your people here in the back, set yourself up here, bait enemies into this, like onto the staircase, and then fight here, and then your heroes are kind of safe, right? And you're being the tank. Stuff like that. It lets you do cool things. It is important to know that this flag will... I'm sorry for the rapid camera movement, I didn't mean to do that. Your flag will cancel everything your people are doing immediately. If they're healing, reviving, casting spells, doing anything, right, it will cancel that immediately and they will just drop everything and go to that flag. Be careful about that, because sometimes that can lead to somebody dying, which is unfortunate, but yeah. For example, let me... actually, that's another topic, right? And now we come to the differences between henchmen and heroes. Heroes, first of all, as I said, you can set them up entirely. You give them gear, you give them skills, they follow you, you do whatever. You can also open up the skill bars by clicking these numbers in your party window. And you see, You see their entire skill bars, their health and energy bars, and you get to even order them to cast things. For example, if I want my pyre to create this spirit, I can just left click on it, and then boom, pyre starts to cast favorable winds. That's cool. If I want to forbid my ally from casting a certain spell, which is rare but sometimes can happen or can be needed, I can hold shift and then click that skill. And now, until I click it back on, it will not be used by the hero automatically, right? And this includes, by the way, if I go back to the city right now and then go out again, the skill will continue being blocked. You have to actually manually unblock it, right? This can be useful. Again, for example, this spell, right, creates a spirit, but it takes 5 seconds. And if you don't have a spirit nearby, the pyre will cast the spell at the start of the fight, right, which basically renders him useless for the first 5 seconds of the fight. So I actually might want to do this, for example, if I want to engage in a fight, right? Anyway, there's another thing you can do with heroes, and you cannot do with henchmen. As you can see here at the top right, there are 2 more flags, one for pyre and one for Master of Whispers. And I can individually order them to go to different spots away from the main flag. Even if the main flag is not present, I can still order them to do that, right? And that is cool. You cannot do that with henchmen. Please note, if you have 3 heroes, you can order the 3rd one as well individually. If you have 8 heroes, you can only order them if you bind hotkeys to them. You don't actually have UI for hero 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? Which is a bit inconvenient, and I personally don't use that functionality, but it is an option if you really want to. Now, when it comes to, again, controlling your party, right? Let's say you need somebody to use a skill on you, or on a specific target. You select that target. For example, remember I said you can press F to select yourself? There you go. And then, let's say I want Master of Whispers to give me this weapon of shadow that protects me from melee attackers, right? I can order him to cast that spell. Oops, sorry for the network error. Okay. So, as I was saying, when you select some target, like for example here I select myself, and you order some hero to cast a spell or use an ability, that ability will be used on the target you select, right? So in this case, if I want Master Whispers to cast a support spell on me, I select myself, click the spell, and you see over here it appears. He casts it on me specifically. The same way, if you want somebody to cast a spell on a specific target, you select the target and then you order them to shoot an arrow, for example. Here, Pyre didn't do that because he has a short bow, so a short range is a bit out of range there. But nonetheless, there's one more thing that you can do with your heroes, which is if a fight is breaking up, for example, and you're fighting, a bunch of stuff, and then you realize there's a priority target that you want to kill, you can actually hold control and double-click on an enemy. Doesn't matter if you do nameplate or body, and that will tag them for attacking. All of your heroes will try, and not only heroes, in general, all of your NPC party will try to attack that target and kill it. And you also see this little target at the top left in the party. This thing allows other people to click on it, and they will select the target that you highlighted as well. So if I'm right now selecting suit of 35, I click on the button, I select now a suit of 55, right? Thanks to that button. You can also, I believe, press T by default to target whichever enemy is marked by your allies if you're playing with other people. That's convenient. That allows you this control double click. Actually, one more note. Besides control double click, you can also select the target and do control spacebar. Same way as you could do the spacebar to continue attacking something. You can do control spacebar and you can just spam the hell out of it, right? To do the same thing. Now, what that lets you do is that lets you that lets you focus target on, for example, support heroes in the enemy group, right? They will have healers, and if you're just doing sprinkle damage across their entire squad, they might be able to keep them up and indefinitely, right? So you want to focus them up, bring them down, and then continue killing other targets. Right. Let me quickly take a look at my notes. I believe that is mostly it about hero control and stuff like that. Now I want to talk about targeting and certain UI elements you might not pay attention to originally. First of all, targeting, you've already figured out how it's done. You can select with the keyboard, you can select with the mouse, whatever. But there are certain, let's say, status effects that you can have, or the enemy can have, and they are of 3 types. There are enchantments. If you see down here at the bottom, there's this spell, and there's a little yellow triangle arrow, right, pointing up. That is a symbol of enchantments. Those are usually positive effects, usually applied by allies, stuff like that. There are also hexes. Those are negative effects applied to enemies most of the time, and they have purple, sort of pinkish purple triangle looking down. There are also conditions. All of them are different things, right? Enchantments are usually unique effects, hexes are usually unique effects, and conditions, there's just a set of conditions that can be applied, similar to, Guild Wars 2, except not so potent, I would say, not so damaging. But anyway, how do you distinguish that, and why is it important? For example, this suit of 55. First of all, if I apply enchantment and select myself, you can see at the top of my health bar this little arrow. This means there's at least 1 enchantment on the character, right? And it doesn't matter if it's me or somebody else, this means there's at least 1. If there's this suit of armor and I cast this hex spell, you should see a purple arrow on their nameplate, again, here at the very top. That means there's at least 1 hex on them. And now if I shoot them, because of how my character is set up, you see this brown arrow right next to the purple one? That means, let me do it again. He'll probably die though. Yeah. That brown arrow means there's a condition on the target, right? At least 1 condition. It will never tell you which one. There are very few visual effects that actually show you what kind of conditions they have, and some conditions have even the same visual effects, so I wouldn't rely on that. But there are certain skills that require you to have a condition or an enchantment on the target, or a hex on the target, right? Or they do have some bonus effects if the target has an enchantment or a condition or a hex, right? So for that reason, watching enemies' nameplates and watching for those triangles, right, is an important thing. For example, Master of Whispers has a spell here, Defile Enchantments. It does damage, and then it does more damage for each enchantment on the enemy, right, on the target. So I know that if, for example, again, let me cast an enchantment on myself. I know that if I see this arrow, I will do at least 1 instance of that bonus damage, right? And that's very cool. That's very useful. Sometimes, for example, for me, there's a skill, an attack over here, bow attack. I gain energy if target foe has cracked armor. And usually, I run a group that only applies cracked armor condition, so I know that if I see a brown target, I will get my energy back, because nobody else applies conditions to the targets, right? Or no different conditions are being applied. So it can be played with. It is definitely important to know. And some skills, remove enchantments. So if you see an enemy plate without this arrow, that means that skill that removes enchantments will do nothing, right? So yeah, please pay attention to that. That's very useful. And now finally, we get to the last topic of today, which is AoE skills and targeting. AoE in this game doesn't exist in the same way as in probably other classic RPGs. For example, you don't have, round circles, areas that you can place on the ground and deny areas, right? You don't have cone attacks that would spread out of you. What you do have are skills that target enemies and also happen to hit enemies next to them, right? For example, this Firestorm, right? It hits foes adjacent to the target initial location, but it does require a target for you to cast. For example, if I select nothing, look away, and I press 4, which is my Firestorm, I cannot cast it, right? It gives me this error. But if I select a suit of armor and then cast Firestorm, boom, the cast happens, and you see, the spell takes effect. And even after the target dies, it continues to have its effect, because, well, it was completed, right? It was cast, which is cool. There is one important thing you need to know, is that most spells and skills that target enemies, or just in general have targets, right? They will get cancelled if your target dies while you're casting it, right? For example, let me try to cast this Firestorm on the suit of armor, and then I will cast Mark of Rodgod. See? that sound effect was the sound effect of it cancelling. I lost energy. You saw I was at a very low energy, and the skill did not go on a cooldown. This is important. Your skill that gets cancelled doesn't go on a cooldown. It only, wastes your energy because you tried doing it. So be mindful of that. There are exceptions to this rule. There are very select few skills that will finish their cast while the target is dead, or if the target dies while casting it. But they are rare, far between, and you probably will encounter them on your own by just playing the game, honestly. Specifically, for example, Elementalist has quite a lot of them, like this Firestorm. Firestorm will finish its cast if the target dies, and it will take effect in the area where the target was when it died. That Defile Enchantments on the Necro also will finish casting for some reason. I don't know why, but it will. But most of the time, those are the skills that have like AoE overtime effects, right? Most of the time. Again, it is individual skill per skill. And I think that wraps up the topics of today. In the next one, we will be talking about skills, reading the fine print, and different game mechanics that could help you understand what the hell is going on. As for now, thank you very much. I hope you have a good one, and see you in the next one.